Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories podcast. Today, we're going to be covering a Mormon bishop from Tennessee and his confrontation with a stake president. For those of you who don't know what a stake president is in the Mormon context, wards or congregations are led by bishops instead of priests or pastors. And then a leader over, let's just say 8 to 10 Mormon congregations is called a stake president. So it's a relatively high regional level leader in the Mormon church. And today we're going to be talking about a Mormon bishop from Tennessee and his surprising confrontation with his stake president. And joining us for today's episode is Nathan Hinckley. Hey, Nathan, Bishop Hinckley, I should say.
Hey, John, how are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Really quickly, before we begin, I just want to let people know one of the reasons we're doing this episode is because Margie and I are coming to Tennessee next weekend. The actual dates of that are, it's basically May 25th. And one of the reasons one of the things we love to do is help create community for progressive and post-Mormons that need friends or support. So I rushed to do this episode when I learned about Nathan or Bishop Hinckley, because if you live in or near Nashville, Tennessee, or the surrounding states, and you're looking for friends and community, we are doing a meetup, and we just want to help you find all the support you need in your faith transitions or faith crisis. So in the description of YouTube or Facebook, you'll find a link to the Mormon Stories Nashville meetup. And there's going to be events May 24th all the way through May 26th. There's a Facebook group that you can join to meet people ahead of time for the event. There's going to be, the main event is going to be on the 25th. I think in the afternoon, you can purchase tickets to be able to eat the food, but mostly we just, there's no profiteering going on. We're doing this literally just to help people find friends and community. And we're grateful for, specifically for Jennifer and Darren, who have graciously offered to help organize this event, and whatever friends they are recruiting to help. So that's Jennifer and Darren Rogers. So anyway, tickets are cheap. Go to the link in the description if you want to meet us up next week. And if you want to host a Mormon Stories meetup in your area, in your state, in your city, reach out to us at mormonstories@gmail.com, and we will do our best to organize an event. All right. So without any further ado, Nathan Hinckley, welcome to Mormon Stories Podcast. It's so great to have you.
Thanks, John.
All right. So this isn't going to be one of those 4, 5, 6 hour epic Mormon stories. We're going to try and do this in an hour to an hour and a half, just because I think your story is fascinating. So Nathan, let's just jump right in. Just tell us a little bit about your Mormon background, just in terms of like growing up, mission, education, and family, just in like 2 to 3 to 5 minutes, so we can get a sense for your background before we jump into your story.
Okay. So I come from pioneer stock. You notice my last name, Hinckley. So everyone wants to know if I'm related to the prophet, which we are second cousins, 3 times removed, which means I've never met him, or I had never met him, but we do go back to the pioneer times. Actually, Arza Hinckley was, he and his brother had converted to Mormonism. We came through Arza, and Gordon B. Hinckley came through, I think it was Ira. So we both come through 2 different brothers. As far as my upbringing, I was born in Utah, and actually in Layton, Utah. Consequently, I have a son named Layton, also Hiram, also Brigham, and Kaylee. But I guess we'll get to that in a second. Anyways, we moved to the South when I was just a baby. My parents pursued a musical career. They played music in lots of different places, including Dollywood and some other places here locally. but that was their main job for 20 plus years is as a music duo. So music brought us to the South. We've always been in church. We've always done all of the church things. Of course, I went on a mission when from 1998 to 2000 in Argentina. 6 weeks after my mission, I was married to my wonderful, beautiful wife, Amy. We were married in the Atlanta Temple. And let's see, that takes me to having our 4 kids. I gave you their names. The oldest, our daughter, was married last year. And that was about right at the time that my... some people would call it a faith crisis. My wife, actually, I like the way she put it better. She said the church had a truth crisis that we became aware of.
Really quickly, Nathan. So when were you called as a bishop and how long did you serve? Because it's important for people to know, especially outside of the Mormon context. It's a really big deal to be called as a Mormon bishop. It sort of means you've arrived within the Mormon power structure or paradigm. And it's kind of a sacred responsibility because you're, in effect, a priest or a pastor of a large congregation, right?
That's right. Let's see. Everybody's telling me my voice sounds really high, like I'm on helium. So hopefully that's not the case. But anyways, I'll have to turn my messages off, I guess. Yeah. So your comment, John. So we are in a pretty small ward. Matter of fact, I would probably say that my siblings would have been more in line with being called as a bishop or something. But given where we live, that was the calling that I got. I did serve in 2 bishoprics before being called as the bishop. And it was a great experience. It was tough. It was a lot of time, a lot of work, but I love the members. I know them all. Matter of fact, my wife is related to most of them, especially in this ward. It's a kind of what people would consider a family ward with lots of cousins and related folks. So it was a 5-year commitment, and we did the best I could and enjoyed it.
Okay. All right. So how long ago did you stop being a bishop again?
So that was in 2017.
Okay. So it's about 7 years ago you were released from that calling. But in Mormonism, they say once a bishop, always a bishop. Is that right? Do people still refer to you as bishop?
They do. Yeah. Okay. I get messages all the time or see people that still refer to me that way.
Okay. All right. So how does a Mormon bishop start going to question or deconstruct their faith? How does that happen?
So when I was bishop, I was randomly selected to answer some questions from the church. I was sent a questionnaire or a link, and in that they were trying to find what the bishops thought about the gospel topic essays. Well, when I got the link, I kind of treated it like it was a product review from, a blender or something. I thought I could click through. Yeah, it's great. But it said, did you read the gospel topic on essay on a certain topic? If I said yes or no, then it would say, why didn't you read it? Or it would say, what did you think about it? And it would just really dig deep. And then I would click to the next button and it would say, did you read the gospel topic essay on this? And it finally got to a few that I knew that I didn't really want to read. John, as you know, and as most people know, we've been taught for years and years to kind of stay clear of what we were told was anti-Mormon literature. I had never honestly heard the name John DeLynn or Mormon Stories or CES Letter or any of that stuff. I had always read what the church gave me or provided for me. On my mission, I was only allowed to bring 5 books on the mission. And before the internet, people don't realize how different that time was, how the church could really just really control the narrative and the information. So as I started reading some of those essays, I definitely, I would say, had a shelf item moment. And there were a few that I just didn't read. I told the church, oh, yeah, it's great, but I really didn't read it. And that takes me through the rest of my time as bishop. That was probably a year or so before I was released when I got that survey from the church. But after bishop, I was on the high council and served in that way. But ultimately, I asked to be released, and some of these things had started to show themselves. And I had some really close friends. Actually, I reached out to him before this interview started. His name is also Nathan, and is also a bishop in our stake. And he and his family had left. They're actually related to my wife's family, but just some of the best people I had ever known. Just sincere, good, honest people. And when he left, I would say that there was something inside of me that sort of said, there's some serious problems here. I would also mention that my sister and her husband had left the church about 5 or 6 years ago while I was bishop. And it was a tough time for me then. But there was, I was pretty hard on them. I was probably, the most rude or the most judgmental or whatever from any of my siblings towards them, just because they say that the way that I treated them was actually perfectly in line with how they would expect or how a true believing member would treat them. But anyways, when talking to my brother-in-law, Todd, at one point, we were discussing polygamy, and he had just mentioned one little thing about, are you sure about that? Because I don't think your church teaches that. And that's when I realized that one of those gospel topic essays was regarding polygamy and the things that the church was now admitting, and it's things that I had never known or been taught. And so that was really kind of where this whole thing started.
What are some of the things you learned about Joseph Smith's polygamy or Mormon polygamy that in all your years as a Mormon, including as a Mormon bishop, you were never taught? Can you just tell us 3 to 5 examples?
Well, I was always under the impression that for the most part, Joseph taught polygamy, Brigham lived it, and definitely had never seen any paintings or movies or anything depicting Joseph's polygamy.
Or probably any mention of it in a church context or in church curriculum, correct?
Absolutely. No mention of it whatsoever. That was obviously, I think one of the biggest things, but not only that, just the I went back and read with my daughter the seminary lesson on polygamy, the teacher's manual for the seminary age kids, and it had literally one paragraph. Basically said, yeah, the church, the Lord commanded this. They did it for a time. They don't do it anymore. And after listening to Lindsay Park's podcast, I was just floored at how much information there is and how much information we have not been told. Of course, the 14-year-old bride, the
fact that Joseph Smith married not only over 30 women, but girls as young as 14, right?
Right. Yeah. Everybody, I think, on this podcast knows these points.
Oh, no. There's going to be people that come onto the podcast who have never heard of Mormon stories or of any of these things. So that's why I'm asking you to talk about it a little bit.
Okay. Regarding polygamy, I mean, I think those are the major points.
Okay, I'll just add. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. The polyandry, the fact that Joseph married women who were already married to other men, was that part of it?
That was a major part, John.
And then that he married mother-daughter pairs and sister pairs. Was that a problem?
That was a major problem.
And I'm not trying to like, lead the witness, so to speak. I'm just trying to help you fill in, because I know we talked about doing this interview this morning. It's not like you've had a lot of time to prepare. The other thing I think that bothers people is that Joseph hid it from Emma, his wife, that she was like the 22nd wife sealed to him, and that he took on his first 20 or so wives, hiding it from his actual wife and kind of lying to her about it. And also hiding and lying from the general membership. Again, this is going to sound like I'm leading the witness, but were those parts of your study?
Those were all parts of it, John. I think that was actually, we're getting to the point where I started going public with some of this stuff, but that was one of the things, the first things that I had mentioned. I really wasn't, because I had said, look, I come from polygamy. My great grandpa was a polygamist. And so I had said, I think I deserve the right to at least talk about this topic that no one seems to want to talk about. And really the only point that I wanted to talk about at that point was the fact that Joseph lied about it. And that is definitely mentioned in the gospel topic essays, that he said, what man, has 7 wives when I can only, they say I have 7 wives and I can only find one. And that was, I think, a month before he was killed. So, till his dying day in the public, I don't want to use the word lied about it, but that's what the gospel topic essays tells us that he did, is that he was not truthful about that. And all the other things you said, John, are all things that have troubled me and things that I did not know, that were really tough to deal with.
All right. So you start having problems with polygamy as you were trying to work with your daughter. What came next?
Well, so this time was a really tough time, John. I had a daughter that was about to get married in the temple to a recently converted fiance. I had sat in our basement and had the missionary lessons, and the missionaries would just turn to me and say, let's just let Bishop Hinckley, teach this part. And I would go on and on about whatever. But there was a few times that I caught myself, questioning. I was starting to look at some of this stuff and questioning whether or not I truly believed it. So I think it was, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks or so before my daughter's wedding, or I sat her and her fiance down, and through about 30 minutes of tears where I couldn't even speak, I said, Kaylee, we want to talk to you about something. And her first response to me was, she was crying, and she said, I just know that in the last days, the very elect are going to be deceived, Dad. She kind of was not real thrilled what we were telling her. But I think that gave her the permission to kind of look at this stuff. She had been like I was. I had never looked, and it's a lot harder for kids nowadays with social media, but I had never looked at the stuff the church told us not to look at. And I think with Kaylee, that gave her the permission to just look what's available and look for yourself, form your own opinion. And within no time, she was, she removed her names and she said, yeah, this isn't for me. She kind of led the way. to be honest. And so we have.
Your daughter was the first in your family to leave.
That's right. Yeah.
And what is it about Mormonism and its teachings of families and eternal families that makes that a really significant thing for a faithful, believing Mormon to have one of their children leave the faith? And what was that like for you and your wife?
Well, I think once it happened, John, my testimony of what would have been the eternal families and the way that the church teaches sealings and things like that had already changed. So it wasn't as big of a deal, but I want to get this one point out. The way that I was, say, with my sister when she left, pretty harsh. I know that had my daughter, if we would have, she would have went through the temple, probably would have got freaked out. She's a very smart, extremely smart girl. And I have no doubt that she would have very soon found all of this stuff out as she was out on her own and not in our home. And I have no doubt that I would have treated her in a very bad way. I was so, I guess, blinded by what I was told was the truth that it would not have been a good thing for our family. And that's really the one thing about all this that I know for sure, that this is the way that it needed to be for us, for sure. She let out. She's smart, and she would have found the problems, and I had just simply gave her the permission to look at them.
Got it. Okay, so what happened next?
Okay, so over the next, so that was about a year ago, and for the next 6 months, there was one time early on in all this that I ended up going to the hospital, to the emergency room one night. I really didn't know why, but I kept trying to make, the church work, the things that I had learned, but now I'm seeing that this isn't the way that it actually is. The church is admitting this, and they didn't teach that before. And I just had a constant mental battle, which I now know is cognitive dissonance, but I didn't know at the time. And I thought I was going crazy. And so I told my wife to take me to the hospital, and she actually took a picture of me hooked up to a bunch of wires and everything at the doctor. And I'm sure he thought that I had overdosed or something like that. So he does all these tests. And after a couple hours, he comes back and he says, "Hey, you're clean, man." I'm like, "I know I'm clean." And he gives my wife some pills or something. He says, "Have him take this. He'll be fine." But, that happened twice, John. It was just trying to fight against what was so obvious, that this stuff just doesn't add up anymore. And so, that took 3 or 4 or 5 months of really looking at each part of what I would have called my testimony and figuring out, do I still believe that? And what is the church? There's the picture.
So here's a photo of the picture you sent me. Are you saying that your faith crisis manifested in physical symptoms of distress and illness, and that this is a picture of you admitting yourself to the hospital to try and figure out if there was a physical, if you were experiencing some sort of, condition, when in reality, it was just the distress caused by your faith crisis? Is that what you're telling us?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I've never been in the hospital for anything, John. I don't have, stress or anxiety or any of those things, but I would lay awake at night, and I'd get an hour of sleep, and I'd be back, and I'd be typing, and I was starting to write things and figure out, what do I believe? And I had sent messages back then to the stake president and met with him back then and sending stuff to my parents and just lost for so long. I would just sit there and hold my wife. We would just, hold each other tight all night long, and just basically shaking from what we thought we knew all along, finding out that it's not that.
So you're saying, if you were to try to give someone a sense for why it was so difficult for you, who maybe has never been Mormon or never been part of a high demand religion, what was so severe about it that it was manifesting as a serious physical medical condition, other than just it, your worldview being different than what you thought? Can you explain maybe a little bit more about why that became so distressing for you?
Well, I honestly don't exactly know why. I know that I felt like I was mentally just racing all the time. Well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what about this time that you felt, the spirit, or what about that time? And how do you explain this? And it's just constantly trying to put a round peg in a square hole.
Were you worried about how family or friends would react if they found out? I mean, one thing that's particularly relevant about being a Mormon bishop is you're viewed in the community as exemplary. Everyone tends to look up to you, respect you. Maybe they even built their testimony on your testimony or your leadership. And so there's the friends and family element, there's the work element, but there's also the fear of what will happen when the people that knew you as a bishop find out that you've, quote, fallen and lost your faith when you used to be a leader in the community religiously.
That's right. I had told you that this particular area that we live it's a small ward. Everybody knows everyone. Everybody knew me, including in the stake, on the high council, and just that's a lot of weight to disappoint your parents, of course, my wife's parents, my grandmother, to disappoint people. I've always, John, been kind of a loudmouth. In high school, I stood up in front of I was in a singing group, and we were at a Baptist church, and they said something about Mormons, and I stood up right in front of the whole Baptist church and said, you've got that wrong, and if you ever want to get your facts straight, why don't you give me a call? And walked out. I mean, I've been kind of on the front lines out here, and so to now realize that all of the things from the 90s, all of the anti-Mormon literature from the 90s, I find now on the church website. Maybe not all, but a lot of it.
So challenges to the Book of Mormon's authenticity, issues with the Book of Abraham, Joseph Smith's treasure digging, the use of folk magic like a peepstone in a hat, the racism that's found in the Book of Mormon and then elsewhere, the connections between the Mormon temple ceremony and the Masonic Lodge. Are those an example of the types of things you're learning about that you used to think were anti-Mormon lies to then discover that are actually have become factual history that the church acknowledges?
That's right. That's exactly what I'd say, along with what we had discussed with polygamy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So basically that takes us, I think, up until, let me also say that my wife and I have been completely unified in all of this, which I understand that that's not always the case, and feel so my heart goes out to those couples and individuals who don't have that. But we as a family, as my wife and my kids, we have never been more unified than we are. And that was one of these points that I'll probably bring up in a second with my discussions with the stake president. But we are doing is better than ever. But certainly my relationship with, my parents and some other friends and other, close relatives and things is obviously not quite as good as it was, to say the least.
Okay.
So anyways, that brings us up, I think, until about a couple months ago, when I decided that I just wanted to be more open and honest with people about what the things that I'm reading and finding out. And I realized that approach is not for everyone. And I don't know why that's the approach that I took. For example, when my sister left, she left completely quietly. Matter of fact, she posted one little thing online about just a nice little poem or something about how, God is in everything or something. And she got hounded. It was just a lynch mob from the ward, from the family, from people in our old ward growing up. How can you do this? And she did nothing wrong. And I decided, you know what, that's not going to be my method. And so I started to post things that I found out. And I started posting about prophets. One of my posts, and they're all public, one of them is, I called it, What Happened to Nathan? Because I kept hearing, hey, what happened to you? So I said, okay, well, this is what happened to me.
Are you saying you stopped attending your local ward?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we stopped attending, I guess about a year ago.
Okay. And so, yeah, people, since you were the bishop, there's going to be people saying, hey, where's the bishop, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I probably have put out 15 or so different short, Facebook posts. Nothing that I think is too groundbreaking. Just my thoughts. Basically, this is what I was taught. This is now what the church is teaching, and what do I think about it?
I'm just going to share a few comments. Natalie writes, these high demand religions can cause physical and mental harm. Thank you for sharing. Natalie writes, I had a heart attack, and it was a way that my body was telling me that I needed to make a major change in my job, in my work-life balance, and in my stress levels. So that's some more validation. Andrea writes, I relate to the way he was feeling. My whole life was turned upside down when I found out the truth about Mormonism. This is a great comment. Errol White writes, your body knows. It sends us distressed warnings. Yeah, so those are just a few quotes. I want to ask everyone, we've got a great live audience here of over 1,000 people.
Oh boy.
We would love it if everyone could please like this episode and subscribe to the podcast, because that's how this gets shared far and wide on the internet. So please take the time, if you can, to like and subscribe to this channel. So you start, this is something that's actually important, Bishop. I do think in Mormonism, people have so much fear, and in other high demand religions, people have so much fear to speak up. And so if they lose their faith, I think the two most common reactions are either to fake it and hide it so that nobody knows, or to just fade away quietly. But speaking up, I think, is really rare because of the fear of the consequences. My viewers and listeners will know that I was excommunicated for speaking up. Many, many Mormons have been excommunicated, kicked out of the church just for speaking up on social media. We've interviewed many of them in the past. And then if you've been a bishop, that's even more significant because, again, you held a very high level of responsibility. And sometimes the church is harder on you the more the higher your reputation or the higher your status is within the church. So I'm just curious, Bishop Nathan Hinckley, what was it that made you feel like you wanted to risk the consequences of speaking out as a Mormon bishop, against, or at least exploring doubts or disbelief publicly as a Mormon bishop? What made you feel like you wanted to do that and it was worth the risk?
I guess I'm not worried about, number one, the repercussions. I honestly just want to speak what I feel is true and basically let the chips fall where they may. I do not want to pull anyone from the church or hurt anyone's testimony. I do believe that people should be informed, that they should have informed consent to the things that to what they're giving their covenanting to give their life to the church and to the building of the kingdom. So I think that they should be informed, that things should not be kept from them. Also, another thought, John, with I had mentioned my sister 5 or 6 years ago. She had one little thing that she had voiced opposition to. It was she wasn't so crazy about the mall that the church decided to build. And she told a couple friends that I don't know about that. She was pulled into a disciplinary council, or I guess it would have been the step before that, all over this one thing. And I just said, you know what? I'm not going to do. I'm going to speak out, and whatever happens, happens. And so I wasn't going to be bullied or told to be quiet. That's not exactly my style.
Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, the church does teach, do what is right, let the consequence follow. So in some sense, we learn, and it teaches to be honest, right? So speaking up in honesty, showing courage is actually a very Mormon thing to do, ironically.
I agree.
Okay. Do you want to talk about, maybe just pick 5 or 7 of the topics that you wrote about, just to give people a sense for the types of conversations you were having online?
Sure. So the first one, I think we've already talked about most of the what happened to Nathan post. Just it was my upbringing in the church, but I'll read this one part from it. This is later on after I got through telling about mission and being a bishop and everything. I remember thinking to myself, if the church is true, then it should be able to stand on its own 2 feet against the criticism and claims against it. I fully expected that it would, and I decided to look at what the problems were. I started on the church website. I quickly noticed that what was anti-Mormon literature in the 90s is now listed as true on the church website. I was devastated and met with my stake president about it. He agreed that there were many things that the church has admitted to that is not well known, and that they were going to try to get the information out in a controlled way. I'm not sure what they have done to do this, but I feel like I am helping them by being vocal online. So that was kind of one of the first ones I started writing. One other that I would like to bring up was I called it naive or nuanced. And basically what I am getting at here, and surprisingly, I know we haven't got to my meeting with the stake president yet, but he also said that he agrees that members should be much more nuanced. And, I didn't even know what that meant a year ago. I was such a black and white, true or false kind of a guy that I realized. So basically in this Facebook post, I talk about how there's a lot of people leaving the church and that the church is in a crossroads and that there's so many different problems to contend with, which We've talked about a lot of them already, from racism to plagiarism in the Book of Mormon to the mall and the shell companies, and anyways, all these things. And then I say members essentially have to make a choice, and I think they fall into two categories: clueless or nuanced. Clueless sounds like an insult, but I don't mean it that way. More like naive. I didn't even know what it meant to be nuanced a year ago, but now I think it's the only way to stay in. So in other words, when I say that I was clueless, I still believe this perfect picture that the church had taught me, that was a kind of a whitewashed history, that it was black and white, true or false. It was the only true church on the face of the earth. And actually, Gordon B. Hinckley has famously had said, each of us has to face the matter. Either the church is true or it is a fraud. There is no middle ground. It is the church and kingdom of God, or it is nothing. And that was from April 2003. So basically, I get into the fact that you either are going to not know of the problems, or you're going to be able to write them off or see them in some nuanced way. And so I say this is an increasingly growing group. To be in this group, you learn to say, well, I don't believe everything the prophet says, or I don't feel that applies to me, or I see it differently, or that prophet must have been speaking as a man when he said that. And so sometimes this is referred to as cafeteria Mormon or buffet Mormon, because they pick and choose the parts they believe. Let me move on to probably a little bit more important topics. This one I called I Am Spiritual Damaged Goods. And this one is one that the state president wanted to talk about quite a bit. What do I mean by damaged goods? I feel like I don't belong anywhere anymore. I could go to the Baptist church down the street, but I honestly still have a lot of holdover beliefs from Mormonism. I talk about in here how almost everything that we call a Mormon belief is taken from somewhere else. Whether it was Alexander Campbell, Solomon Spaulding, Swedenborg, or even the Quran. But that I've told a few people that when Mormonism went out the door, it took as much of Christianity with it as it could. And of course, people want to say, oh, what do you mean? You don't believe in, Jesus anymore? And I say that, no, that's not exactly what I'm saying. But let's see. As a side note, let me just say from what I understood, okay, we won't get into that. So what I work with my dad a lot on some construction stuff. And I asked him the other day, I said, Dad, if you knew the church was not true, would you still go? And he said, yeah, I would, because I see a lot of good fruits. And so I thought about that. And the next day I said, I want to change the question. I said, what if the church was harming you or your family? Would you still attend? And his answer wasn't so quick to be found. And so what I wanted to point out is how the church has harmed me. As a devout Mormon, I felt like I had a testimony in relationship with Christ. I felt a sense of superiority because we had all the truth, whereas other churches only had a little. We had the priesthood and the constant companionship of the Holy Ghost, whereas other churches just had flashes from time to time. The Mormon Jesus was one that approved of an insanely rich investment corporation while spending relatively little for the poor. He was one that approved of Nephi cutting the head off of a drunk guy in order to get the scriptures. He was the one that sent an angel with a drawn sword to command Joseph to start polygamy. He was the one that inspired prophets to contradict each other. He was the one that denied the priesthood to the African race. He was the one that denied children of gay parents to be baptized, and then he's also the one that reversed the policy 3 years later. He was the one that is offended when we use the term Mormon, but had previously told us to be proud of it. He is the one that restored his true church to the earth, but did it in a way where almost all of the most important parts are so easily questioned and contradicted. To be fair, he was also the one that drowned armies in the sea and many other things in the Bible. He was starting to become, quite frankly, a mean and confused guy. I now see how people are so easily persuaded, how quick people are to accept something that they would not typically accept just because it comes from their church leaders. So, my dad had said, I just hope that you can go back to believing as fervently in Jesus as you ever have. And I don't care which church you go to. And I just said, Dad, I wish it were that easy. That I understand you shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I'm trying to separate God and Jesus from who they truly are, from just these man-made stories. But for now, I am damaged goods. And then one last one, John. Well, there was one that talked about, I can fix the Mormon church. And I think that raised a few eyebrows. Basically, the whole point of this one is if the church would stop claiming that the prophets speak for God, then I think almost every problem the church has can be written off as it was just men doing the best they can, in a sense. So basically, in order to fix the Mormon church, we stop claiming that the leaders literally speak for God or have any exclusive authority that is only found within the church. If this were the case, every problem can be simply chalked up to he was just an imperfect man doing the best he could. Of course, at the end of that, Facebook post, I point out, while this could fix the church, I believe it would also cease to be. People would realize that they can be just as close to God by taking their family to the mountains on a Sunday morning than to a building. They could focus more on how they feel God is speaking to them instead of what the current things being said from the prophets are, thus minimizing their usefulness and diminishing their power. They could find ways to bless the poor and the needy themselves rather than give money to a multi-billion-dollar corporation. I should probably, no, I'll leave that one for anybody that wants to read it. So the last one, John, I had put, the truth has set me free. And of course, I know that when Jesus said that he was probably referring to sin, death, and condemnation. But when I think of the truth has set me free, I think about how I am now free to open my mind and my the possibility of any teaching that I find interesting. That I don't have to rely solely on just the things that the prophets are telling me. And so I go through and talk about how this truth has made me free. It says, what do I mean? I have no boundaries. I am free to investigate anything I find interest in, whether it be alternate interpretations of scriptures, healing through positive thinking, benefits of alcohol and communion with other people as Jesus taught, proper consideration and usefulness of prophets or scriptures. I am also free to consider more agnostic ideas. Similarly, I no longer condemn ideas that I have yet to consider or think seriously about, whether it be other religions altogether or concepts such as reincarnation or tarot cards or the benefits of positive energy through gemstones or crystals. Things that I may have mocked before. I have an open mind. I'm free to consider anything that I find interesting, and I think that is freedom. That this truth has set me free. I say that I now believe that there can be truth found in all things. That there is not just one path back to God. No need to post John 14:6 to me. I believe that the most important thing we can do is learn to respect and love each other. I know that some people don't find my recent posts loving, but they are. They are based in just telling the truth and let people decide for themselves. I am perfectly happy with anyone choosing whatever path they feel is best for them. However, I claim this same right. I feel that if there's a separate set of rules for me because of where I stand in my beliefs, especially for my kids, then I will raise hell. In a loving way, of course. These are some of the ways that I feel the truth has set me free. So anyways, John, I'm not a writer. My brother's a songwriter. My daughter is an incredible writer. She's got some poems in here, one that maybe I would love to share with you.
Before you do, I don't want to disagree with you, but I'll just say what I think is meaningful and powerful to people is just people sharing their authentic beliefs from the heart. And you're doing that, and I think it's powerful. And so I just want to give my vote to say that what you're sharing is deeply meaningful and impactful. And that's what really reaches people, not being a great writer, but not having anything meaningful or authentic to say. So I don't mean to disagree with you there. Before you read your daughter's quote, let's put a pin in that. I'm going to just show you a few other essays that I found on your Facebook page. And I'm not going to ask you to read from them, but just if you could just share the basic gist of what you were saying. And I'll give a little bit of context before I jump in. What people should know is that one of the main roles of a Mormon bishop is to uphold and support and even enforce Mormon doctrine and Mormon practices. And, just even a few years ago, just for one single Facebook post or Instagram post or tweet, you could get excommunicated. Even sometimes for saying benign things. We interviewed someone on Mormon Stories podcast years ago that said they didn't believe in D&C 132, the polygamy part, and that got them a disciplinary council just saying that they no longer believed in polygamy, let alone criticizing or questioning the church. So the fact that you're a Mormon bishop who speaks very publicly about very important Mormon practices or doctrines makes the story with your stake president, which you're going to tell in a bit, even more significant. But what I'm going to do is just show a few of your posts and just have you very, very briefly summarize, if you don't mind, what your point is. So there's one post on, does God really need your money? So there it's talking about tithing. And then up a little bit more, you've got, 7 problems with LDS tithing. So I'm gonna ask you about like eight different essays just for you to summarize. But can you summarize your concerns with Mormon tithing just at a high level so people can know?
Okay.
And I'm not asking for detailed. Just you can summarize. A paragraph or two.
Well, the things I found interesting with tithing is number one. When it was instituted, that it was taught in a way that if you have means, if you have the ability to do it, and then when they published the written version, they omitted that part and suggested that it would be a requirement of everyone and not just if you have means. That was one point, and the other is that one of our prophets had said the time will come when the Lord will no longer require tithing of its members. And so I'm saying, we're worth what? I just saw something before we went on today about $49 billion, something another. We have...
No, the Mormon church is estimated to be worth $250 billion. That's billion with a B. Okay,
so... do we have enough? And has that time come? And if not, why not? That's really was the point of that post is why did it change from being just for those who can't, who have means, to being required of everyone? And how come we don't have enough?
Required of everyone, no matter how poor, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I get into a little bit of, building the mall and owning, 2% of Florida's landmass, and, just all of these things. Like, when are the members going to be told about some of this stuff? I had no idea the church owns hunting
reserves,
reserves, and that the church is the biggest the largest landowner of Nebraska. Like, I had no idea of this. Why are the members not told this stuff?
Yeah. All right. That's really helpful. Okay. Let's just go to some others. You have a post that says, "Is the word of wisdom wise?" And very controversially, there's you with what appears to be a mixed drink. I don't know if there's alcohol in it, but a Mormon bishop holding what appears to be a mixed drink. That's pretty hardcore. Tell us what's wrong with the word of wisdom? What's wrong with not drinking coffee or tea, tobacco or alcohol? What's wrong with that?
So, you're right. That is a mixed drink. I have not learned to enjoy certain things. I can't drink a beer. It's just I've found a couple little things that I like, but really, honestly, not really. I had never tried alcohol in 44 years, and had sort of judged other people for doing it. And I talk about that a lot, but I basically said, why is this that important? And I go through different things. Of course, Jesus drank, Joseph drank. These are all points in that. Of course, Brigham drank and owned distilleries. And I talk about how in the church handbook that you can get a doctor's note for medical marijuana. But that doesn't make sense why a doctor can sort of supersede the word of wisdom. The other point with alcohol, it's my understanding that when polygamy was taken from the saints, they wanted another way to be a peculiar people, and that they adopted. I take this from the church church website, that they adopted this new doctrine as a requirement to enter into the temple. So in a sense, when we live the word of wisdom by absolutely abstaining from those things, in a sense, we are saying we're going to do this because we can't live polygamy anymore. That's the way I read it. There's some other things that just doesn't make sense. You can drink soda and sugar, sugary soda all day long, but a coffee or whatever would keep you out of the temple. And then the other part that I would just point out is I've seen some benefits of it. I have sat with a few friends here recently, and we've burned up 4 or 5 hours just what I would call communing with each other. And this is what my sister talks a little bit about, a lot better than I can. But when Jesus instituted this communion, it was a way to form a community, to commune one with another, and consequently, alcohol was part of it. And so I had always, judged and turned my nose down on anyone that would drink or whatever. And now I just don't think that it's as big of a deal. However, you won't catch me probably with a beer, but maybe a mixed drink or two.
Got it. Okay. The next one I want to talk about, you've got one called Modesty Shmodesty.
Modesty. How about that for a title, John?
I love it. And you've got photos, for those who are just listening, you've got a photo of your wife in a dress that's showing her shoulders and, a little bit of her upper chest and neck. Of course, that would be viewed as immodest in a Mormon context. But then next to it, you've got a photo of your wife in a bikini in a very playful pose. Now, that's very shocking by Mormon standards, especially in 2024. What's wrong with, quote, the church's standards around modesty? What are you saying about that?
Okay. This is actually a biggie for us. My wife has always worn garments exactly the way she was told to. When I was bishop, there was multiple times that she would say, "Well, how come they're not wearing this?" And I think the women maybe tend to observe these things maybe more than men at times, but she always did exactly exactly what she was supposed to. If she was going to the lake, she would change somewhere at the lake or whatever. She would drive in her garments that were supposed to protect her. Of course, now Elder Oak says it's not a protection, but she had always lived that way and would not be caught in a bikini. That's the way she was raised. And so in that post, I talk about my wife lost some considerable weight after going through her childbearing years and things like that. And I was proud of her. She was also kind of being a health coach to some people in a health program she was doing. And so I started taking pictures, and I noticed that was kind of what you do. You show a bikini, or at least like the one picture you showed, she's completely covered, but not by garment standards. And so that whole Facebook post is just the way that we in the church judge one another. When the church makes a rule that when you're endowed, you always wear this, as bishop, I don't know how many times that I read the paragraph, the garment must not be removed for activities which might reasonably be done with the garment worn beneath the clothing, even such activities as working in the yard, etc., etc. Well, that's the way we always lived. And I go through this whole thing about modest is hottest and how that's a bunch of garbage, really, that no one actually believes that's just something that we say in the church. Basically, my point with that whole post is that the church should not be telling people what to wear. Once they do, it gives the members something to judge each other by. And I would say the same thing with the word of wisdom. Once they make those rules, those commandments, those whatever, now we have something to judge each other by. And I give an example of how my wife was judged from, I'm not going to say from who, but they said, I just could not see those posts of you in a bikini. You were flaunting to everyone that you weren't living the gospel. Now, keep in mind, John, this was at the lake. And she was in a bikini, but all of a sudden that was flaunting that she was not living the gospel. This is the way that certain members take that. And it should not be that way. We should not be telling people what to wear. We need to get out of the clothing business. And that's the point of that post.
Excellent. All right. Thanks for entertaining a few of these. I've just got a couple more. You've got a photo of a baby kind of on life support, and you're asking the question, can Mormon men heal the sick? And I think that's an important thing, especially as a bishop. You're kind of the leader of the priesthood in your ward, and Mormons teach that Mormon men, if they have the priesthood, have the power of healing. That's one of the benefits of having the Mormon priesthood, is that other people can't heal the sick, but Mormon men, if they're righteous, can. What's wrong with that teaching, Bishop Nathan Hinckley?
So that picture is actually my son Hiram. He was born 7 weeks premature, and so he was hooked up to everything there, and we reached our hands through the little incubator, whatever they call it, and gave him a blessing. It was honestly a very spiritual, very humbling time. However, as I've thought of this whole thing with priesthood blessings, so I say, can Mormon men heal the sick? Yes, sort of, but so can you. And so I basically talk about how there's some problems with the whole priesthood blessing thought. In one way, the house always wins. No matter what happens after a blessing, the church has its explanation ready. Either bad things just happened to good people, if things took a turn for the worse, and Jesus needed them on the other side, or in the case that someone may get better, that they were healed and praise Jesus, and let's see. I say that while our friends might be, I say this is actually very traumatizing teaching when we go on and on about one person being healed and praise Jesus while our friends might be planning a funeral. We know we've done both for our kids. So we buried one of our kids, John, from a premature, from a stillborn birth. So we know what it's like to be on both sides of that. I talk about how Elder Oak said the least important part of the blessing is the words, which I don't think many members realize that. I have some close people to me that will actually take notes during a blessing. I just talk about and I mentioned this to the stake president. Every weekend, the apostles, the Lord's apostles, are in a different place on this planet. And instead of being where they should be, they're in churches and meeting houses and sitting in offices. Why are these men not at the children's hospital? Why are they not blessing and healing children? And I point out that it's just doesn't make sense, John. So I say this is the Mormon belief. This is my take. My take is that I believe in every religion or no religion, there is a possibility to have what seems like an unexplainable healing. I've watched many videos of testimonials of other faiths claiming this same power. I do not totally dismiss this, although in many of these cases, I believe that it's either a misdiagnosis or it might be that they, due to their positive thinking, they brought about a change. The mind is a powerful thing. Just look up healing through positive thinking. So do I believe Mormon men can heal? I guess so, but so can Mormon women and Baptists and Jews and atheists. We do not have this exclusive power in the church. A father in Utah has no more ability to heal his sick daughter than a mother in Africa. What a pompous claim, if you think so. There's more to that.
Powerful. No, that's powerful.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just do a couple more. So many folks who are Mormon will know that it's generally taught that R-rated movies are evil or bad within the Mormon church. That's how we all grew up. We didn't see our movies, or if we did, we felt super guilty. What's wrong with prohibiting R-rated movies, Bishop Nathan Hinckley?
Well, I think actually what the answer to that goes back to the same thing with garments and the same thing with the alcohol or the word of wisdom. It's a rule to judge each other by. And I point out in here that many of my Mormon friends had asked me, hey, have you seen this particular movie? And I was like, no, we're not supposed to watch that. I point out how other countries don't even have a rating system. And so why are we told what to watch in the USA, but other Mormons aren't? That didn't make sense to me. Why does God put the Motion Picture Association in charge of what I'm allowed to watch anyways? And then I point out how I never watched Passion of the Christ because that was rated R, and that I was told that I don't even have to think about if I should watch that. The prophet has already answered that question. I say that this actually was a bit of a shelf item for me because there was one movie that was rated R that I saw, and I absolutely loved it. And it was called A Time to Kill. And in that movie, I learned a proper view of the... I acknowledge the racism that is so prevalent in our society. And I don't know if you know that movie, but it really taught me to call out that racism, to not be a part of it. And so that's actually one of my favorite movies, but it was rated R. And I remember when my daughter Kaylee came to me one day and said, Dad, can I watch a rated R movie? I said, yeah, you can. You can watch this one. And I put on A Time to Kill. And I love the movie and I love what it taught me. Similarly, Saving Private Ryan kind of taught me to have patriotism and gratitude for our freedoms. What I had said about A Time to Kill is this movie helped me tear down false and evil ideas that were so prevalent in our society regarding race and racism. And so then I mentioned Saving Private Ryan, and then I just finished in saying it sounds like a little thing, but I guess when you have the understanding that God is telling the prophet what to teach the world and you purposefully oppose it, then I guess it becomes a moment of cognitive dissonance that sits on a shelf. And so then I had just asked, what movies have I missed out on? And so everybody gave me all of their rated R recommendations.
No, there's so many great movies that, like Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan and Glory. There's just so many incredible movies with really important messages that Mormons of all people really need to hear. And to limit people to G and PG-13 movies that sometimes are vapid or senseless or even portray really superficial or toxic values. It is a significant part of our culture and a really important thing to highlight. So it's fun that you're highlighting it. Let me ask you for 3 quick ones. We'll just do 3 quick ones and then we'll get to your stake president's reactions. You have an essay called "Can You Work Your Way to Heaven?" Summarize really quickly what you're saying there.
So on that one, I was wanting to point out the difference between what Gordon B. Hinckley and Russell M. Nelson said. Gordon B. Hinckley said, "In moments of quiet, we reflect upon his matchless life and his unconditional love for each of us." I say, I love how Hinckley said his love is unconditional. And then Nelson said on June 17th on a social media account, "Jesus asked us to love one another as he has loved us. Is this possible? Can our love for others really approach divine love? Yes, it can. The pure love of Christ is granted to all who seek and qualify for it. Such love includes service and requires obedience." And I talk about how I don't love how Nelson says that you have to qualify for his love. In other words, work for it. And that's kind of what that's about. Is basically is God's love unconditional, or are there conditions to it? Yeah. And I also mention how I don't love the song "Families Can Be Together Forever." It's one of the most commonly sang hymns of the church, but the word "can" suggests that it's only possible if the family does not fall away, and then as long as the family does not do things that they should not do. The word "can" becomes "can't" when those things happen, and that's not good.
That's so good. That's a great point. All right, you've got one on why you hate improvements in the Mormon Church. Why in the heck would you hate improvements in the Mormon Church? Sounds like you would want improvements. If you're going to list the problems with it, then you would want improvements. What's wrong with improvements?
So I mentioned two short things, just how the youth standards have changed. The For the Strength of Youth pamphlet used to be this big, and now it's this big, and they're not telling you every single thing, so that's a good thing. Missions have changed in that you can call home and do things. But really the point of that one was this whole bit on weddings. I didn't get into my profession. I build homes and do remodeling, but I also have a videography business where I do a lot of weddings, which are almost exclusively non-Mormon. But I get into how you used to not be able to do a ring ceremony or get married civilly, or you would have to wait the year to go to the temple. So it was basically a punishment. I mentioned how a very dear friend of mine, who I know is watching right now, I'll just read this part. Even though the civil ceremonies and ring ceremonies were expressly forbidden for years, Mitt Romney was able to do it, nevertheless, and still go immediately after to the temple to be sealed. My dear friend, who is similar to the age as Mitt, was denied this opportunity, and therefore her own mother and actually no one from her family was able to attend any part of her wedding. Her last name just was not well known enough, I guess. It is a heartbreaking story. So this whole thing with the weddings is an absolute disaster. And I actually, as bishop, I wrote the stake president a pretty lengthy email acknowledging and shining a light on why are we doing this? Why are we allowing people to start their lives in this time when there's so much division, especially if there's a non-member family? But not only that, everyone has at least some loved one that they would love to be with them in the temple. So, of course, we're talking about, I guess, a couple different things. The not being able to attend, that you have to have your temple recommend, and is that really necessary? And then also, if you do the ring ceremonies and the civil ceremonies first, you're punished and have to wait a year. And now they've changed it. Hooray! It's great. Now they've changed it, but it just falls short for me, John. I mean, it is good. But why was it that way to begin with? Why has so many families, so many different people went through this agonizing experience, not having their loved ones at their wedding or whatever, and related to that, why are some people allowed to do it? Like Mitt Romney was apparently allowed to get sealed immediately after his civil ceremony. So it's just, it's nice when things get better, but for some of us that have been around a little while, we're wondering, well, why did we have to do it that way?
Yeah, if it's from God, why did it change when there's no real good reason for it having ever been the way it was? And then where's the apology? Where's the acknowledgement so that those who had to suffer through the hard stuff get some sort of behavior that the church expects. The church expects us all to repent, which means to confess our sins, to apologize, to make restitution. And the church just doesn't model that. When it makes mistakes, it gets things wrong. It doesn't atone like it expects us to. And that's a problem. The last one I'll have you talk about is before we jump into your stake president, it's a really big one. You asked the question, is God racist? And you got a picture of a black Mormon couple in front of the temple. That's a serious accusation. Is Mormon God racist, and is the Mormon church racist? What are you trying to say there?
So I feel like the church has two major problems: polygamy and race. Of course, it's got quite a few others, but with race, the two main problems with the race are, of course, the ban that was lifted in 1978, the priesthood ban for the African race. There are hundreds of quotes and teachings that are, quite frankly, just embarrassing. Also, I've learned that the church opposed the civil rights movement, a movement that they actually vilified. The whole thing, I just point out, is just simply embarrassing. And that the church leaders basically put the blame on God. They say, well, why'd y'all have this ban? And they say, well, we don't know. We don't know why God did it. It's his fault. He's the racist one. And that's a problem. To say that that God is racist. He's the one that did the ban. So that's the African race priesthood ban. And then the whole premise of the Book of Mormon is that there are two groups of people, Nephites and Lamanites, that the Nephites were the righteous group with the lighter skinned group. They were labeled as white and delightsome, while the Lamanites are dark and loathsome and cursed with dark skin. I've heard Mormon apologists say, oh, maybe it was a tattoo or something, which is gaslighting. For years and years, we've been taught that is skin. So here's a President Kimball quote. The Book of Mormon tells us that the Indian has dark skin, but he has a promise that through faithfulness that they all again might become white and delightsome. And we could list 1,000 different other quotes, but honestly, my jaw just hits the floor at some of them when they talk about interracial marriage, when they talk about generations getting lighter and lighter and lighter as time goes on, or even the missionary work in the 1800s to lighten the seed of the Indians. The problem with this, John, is that what if I show 1,000 quotes to someone and say, well, what do you say about this? They're going to say either he was just speaking as a man and not as the prophet, or they were just a product of their time and that everyone was racist. And while I agree that these men were not speaking for the Lord and that they were actually simply giving their own opinion, that excuse falls a little flat for me. And to point out that everyone is racist is in fact not accurate. There were some people who spoke out against racism and led movements, but those people were vilified from our church leaders. I do talk about how the church has made some improvements. But it's time to make some changes. We need to change the Book of Mormon. We did it with the introduction. Why not with the actual text? We were recently told in General Conference that one of the purposes of our prophet is to see around corners and to warn us of things to come. After all, that's what's implied by the term prophet, to prophesy. I can't help but notice that time and time again, our leaders seem to lag behind in their teaching, not ahead. And we just wait to see what things we are being told today that a future prophet will say, oh no, he was just speaking as a man and not as the prophet. I don't think we should blame God for man's shortcomings.
Love it. All right. Well, really quickly, I'm on YouTube and I'm noticing that we've only got a few hundred likes. I would really appreciate it if anyone values Bishop Nathan Hinckley and his courage, if you'll take the time to like this episode in YouTube or on Facebook and to subscribe to the Mormon Stories podcast channel. That will really help the algorithms and help encourage YouTube and Facebook to share this video and help it go viral, because I think this is a really important episode that can help a lot of people. So please do take your time to do that. We're getting so many great comments in the chats. Let's go ahead and jump to the stake president. I'm just going to say really quickly that, I was excommunicated as having never been a bishop for speaking publicly about the things you just described. So when I saw in the Mormon Stories podcast Facebook community that you announced you were going to be going to speak to your stake president, and that you had been posting online many of these issues, and now that I've heard all the ones you've talked about, racism, questioning Mormon prophets, questioning tithing, questioning the church's morality standards, questioning the word of wisdom, priesthood authority, these are the big things. The Mormon teachings of salvation in heaven, temple marriage. These are the types of things that are core to Mormon doctrine that I would expect once you spoke out against, you would immediately be excommunicated. So, when I saw that you were going to be going into your stake president, I'm like, hey, I know how this ends. I know how it ended with me. I know how it ended with Natasha Helfer, with Sam Young, with Jeremy Runnels, with Bill Reel, and with Leah and Cody Young. So many Mormon Stories podcast guests have been excommunicated for much less than the types of things that you've been sharing, Bishop Nathan Hinckley, so far. And so I was stunned when I called you this morning to ask how things went with your stake president, because it was actually so far a very positive story for me to hear. So why don't you just go ahead and tell us what it was like to meet with your stake president and how that went? And you can tell us a little bit about how you knew him as well.
Okay. So The stake president reached out to me about 2 weeks ago, and he said, "Hey, Nathan, just checking in. You doing okay?" And I said, "We're doing pretty well. Thanks for checking in. I'll be honest. I'm sure by now you've heard complaints about my Facebook page, and I'm sure you're disappointed in some of the stuff I've shared. That I mean no offense to you or any of the members. And I would understand if you need to remove my name, but I wanted to mention 2 things first. Number one, I pointed out how they had said they wanted to bring these things out and that I thought that I'm maybe helping them. And more importantly, I said, President, people are hurting. You would not believe the amount of people who have sent me personal messages and thanked me for speaking out. Members who have been silently hurting. And I told about a story about a man who reached out to me who does not have social media, but he has been aware of many of these problems through his own study. And he was almost in tears just in when one of his daughters had showed him my page. And she said, "Hey, Dad, I think I know what you might be going through." And he's scrolling through and he gave me a call. He said, "I didn't know that anybody knew this stuff." And he says, I'm so glad to have someone to talk to about this stuff. Related to that, I just want to mention this one comment that was posted. So I think I'm probably okay to say this. It was posted publicly by a friend of mine. "It is very painful to leave. We need support. If Nathan, Hinckley, and Amy didn't speak out and let me know I am not alone, I am not kidding you. I was having suicidal thoughts. I wanted to be dead. It's not fun to disappoint your family and break your mother's heart. You need to understand Nathan is not trying to hurt the church. He is trying to help people like me. They have saved me. I don't cry every day. I can leave the house without having a panic attack. I signed up for some therapy all because they were courageous enough to speak out. And I'm not the only one who feels this way." So anyways, I told President that I would meet with him, but that I wanted him to read, and he acknowledged that he did hear about the Facebook posts, that he hadn't read them, or at least not many of them. So I said, "Well, I'll meet with you, but I want you to read them all." So I sent them all to him.
And this, I just want to highlight this point. Mormons tell on each other, if you post unapproved or critical things to the internet, it's inevitable that an active faithful Mormon is going to turn you in to church leaders. And that's just for like talking openly about history that's factual. It's a disturbing part of our culture that I think bears, noting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we, to be fair, this is what he responded back. He says, "I'm not thinking that we need to remove your name or anything." This was before he read the stuff. He says, "Honestly, I just love to sit down and hear your perspective, and so I can see what I can do better to address these things." So, anyways, I sent him the messages, and then I saw him last Wednesday, and we talked for 2 hours. And actually, John, it was a great meeting. He did not speak down to me. He didn't tell me I'm wrong. He didn't say, "Oh, all of this stuff you've posted is anti or it's not accurate." He didn't do any of that. We had quite frankly, just a really good 2-hour talk. Let me see so this was my, what I had wrote about the meeting. I said, like I said, the guy is actually a great guy. He did not speak down to me, shame me, tell me I'm wrong, or ask me to stop posting. We talked for 2 hours. In my opinion, he basically said that I'm in a better place and a better person now than I was before, which I agree with. Before, I was black and white, by the book, only true church, exclusive truth, and now I find truth and goodness wherever I look. It's all around us. I had sent him all of my Facebook posts and told him that I would only meet him if he read them, which he did. He didn't say that anything was wrong, but mentioned that some of it may have been dated, which he was right. I talked about in one of them how all the apostles were related through different ways, which I acknowledge that was 20 years ago or so. But anyway, it was actually a great meeting. I showed him the multiple messages that I've received from people who have found strength and validation from my posts, including some people who were in an extremely serious depression by religious trauma. I told him that I understood if he needs to remove my name, but that I thought it would be more appropriate to have me speak at state conference to let people know that they are not alone if they decide to leave or if they have problems with the church. That's pretty much where it has ended.
And, you obviously, since being a Mormon bishop, have done a deep dive into Mormon church history, problems with its truth claims, problems with its doctrine and theology. How would you compare your stake president's knowledge both to yours and to all the things that you know are out there that most Mormons really don't feel safe or encouraged to learn? Was he more knowledgeable than you? The same, or did it seem like he wasn't really aware of the issues that caused you concern? Or could you tell?
I think I could tell. I think that he was definitely more knowledgeable than me from a year ago. And when I talked about some of the problems, he seemed like he knew the problems. And, the answer that he gave, honestly, is the only answer that he can give. And it was that, Brother Hinckley, it's just about faith. And that was, I don't knock him for that. That's the only answer you can give to some of this. You either just have faith and just go with it and trust that it's right, or not. But I can't say one negative thing about him. As far as I can tell, he knows these things that I've brought up. He didn't seem surprised, or he didn't say, "Oh, I don't know about that. I'm going to have to look into that." He heard me, and I thought my opinion, I thought he actually agreed with me on a few things, but that's neither here nor there. I would just say that he's a really good guy. And judging by the way my sister was treated for simply saying, "Oh, I don't know about this mall," I think if we can have leaders like this guy, I think the church is probably in pretty good hands, because I can't down him one bit.
That's so amazing. Really quickly, did LGBT issues come up with your stake president at all?
Not much. I had brought it up that especially talking about the reversal of the
exclusionary policy.
Yeah, I brought up that, and that I didn't see how that was, the Lord. I didn't see the Lord in that. That it seemed to me that it was either their own opinions, or by the driven by the public, or whatever. But we talked a good bit about that. He seemed to be very aware, and I don't want to speak for him, because we actually spoke a lot more about that than I've said. But I would just say this: he is very friendly to the LGBT cause.
That's great to hear. That's really great to hear. Really quick, I want to thank Noeme Guzman for the super chat. Those donations really make a difference. If you're able to throw us a little support financially, that helps make what we do sustainable. We're also grateful for those who are monthly donors. If you want to support Mormon Stories, you can become a monthly donor at mormonstories.org. Click on the donate button, become a monthly donor, and we'll keep providing you breaking stories like this. All right, so Bishop, people may not believe this about me or think this about me. I am very, very happy on Mormon Stories to celebrate positive progress, just like we celebrate, same-sex married couple Charlie Bird and his husband Ryan Clifford. The fact that the Mormon Church is letting them be active in their wards, take the sacrament, and have callings, when just a few years ago they were excommunicating same-sex married Mormon couples. I celebrate that. I'm happy for Charlie and Ryan. I'm happy for the church's progress. And that's why I want to personally thank your stake president for how wonderfully he responded to you, and for the progress that he shows, and for the way that he treated you civilly. And I want other bishops and stake presidents out there, and I know that we have bishops and stake presidents who watch Mormon Stories faithfully. I want them to know and feel emboldened by the way your stake president treated you. And I hope that more and more stake presidents and bishops respond this way. So I'm thrilled that you had a good experience. I'm grateful that you're willing to share it. And I'm not going to say but I will say and I share with you, your frustration that you expressed earlier about change in the church, because how many individuals and couples have been excommunicated for, much less within the Mormon Church. We've covered so many couples and individuals that just for a benign tweet, or just for supporting same-sex marriage, or just for creating a support group in their local area, they've been excommunicated without the church apologizing, and without the church fixing or undoing or annulling those excommunications. And so it's bittersweet for me, because I'm really happy for you. I'm really happy for the extent that future change happens in the church. And I just, I'm sad for people that don't have bishops and stake presidents like you do now, because I heard about 5 lesbian couples being excommunicated just last month within the Mormon Church. And I know that there are others being tried for apostasy right now. So I'm sad for people who don't have your bishop or stake president now, and of course for all those in the past that that have been treated more harshly. But having said that, I think this is a moment of celebration. So how are you feeling now that you've had such a positive interaction with your stake president?
Well, I feel like he did the right thing. I know that it's happened, like you said, many times, but I don't see that the church has any right to, to excommunicate or do any kind of disfellowship or anything for speaking truth. As far as I can tell, there's nothing I've said that is not true. And if there is, I would like to correct it. But so I guess I'm like you said, I am grateful that it was this way. I did tell him he's close to about 9 years or so. So I said, I don't think the next stake president will be quite as kind. And he says, well, I don't know. But I know that that's maybe an exception, but I celebrate it.
Yeah. There are a couple of comments that I'll share. Alan Zabriskie writes, Bishop Roulette or stake president roulette is alive and well. He's basically saying it all depends on if you have the luck of the draw of a kind and a friendly bishop or stake president. I'll also add, just for those wanting to understand Mormon dynamics, when you're a former bishop and you're of influence, it will be experienced as a very big scandal, both in your ward and in your stake, if a bishop gets excommunicated. So it's in the church's interest to not come after you, Nathan Hinckley. That doesn't mean they haven't been too dumb to do that in the past. But I would say it's smart from the church's point of view for the stake president to not go after you. But that doesn't, I'm not saying what his motives are or aren't. I'm just saying, let's just, face reality there. It'd be dumb. It would probably cause a lot of other people to leave the church if the state came after you. Clancy writes the stake president may be having his own faith crisis. And I'll just say that's also very possible. It would be speculation, and it's not helpful to speculate in the case of your specific stake president. But as many people know on Mormon Stories, we've had actively serving Mormon bishops come on Mormon Stories in the past year and tell us that they've lost their faith while serving as bishops. And of course, I know I'm reached out to by bishops and stake presidents and high councilmen and missionaries all the time on Mormon Stories, told that they're quietly no longer believing. So anyway, that, all that's true. It's getting harder and harder for church leaders to remain faithful, not knowing in any way what your actual stake president believes or what his fate might or might not be. Any reaction to that, Nathan?
Only that I agree. I agree completely. I just wanted to say a couple things because I feel like we might be wrapping up. First, like I said, I have the most respect for this stake president. Not only is he a friend, but he's just a kind, loving guy, and I'm grateful for that. Also, of course, my parents probably aren't crazy for me being on here, but I think if they've listened, they know that that you, John, actually do a great service and a great work, and I wanted to sincerely thank you. I was hurting bad when I found you, and I had never heard your name mentioned before. I didn't know that this community existed. And I had actually reached out to the other Nathan I told you, and I said, Nathan, I've got a problem. And I knew that he had left, and he steered me in a lot of good places. But one of the places I found was you, John, and I wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I was mentioning my parents. I wanted them to know how much I love them and appreciate them, and they are really, really good people.
I love it. I didn't want to stop you. Were there other things you wanted to say, or were those the main things?
That was really it.
Okay. Let me share a couple more comments really quick because we're getting some great comments. Donna writes, I love awakened Southerners. Donna Donald. Hey, I'm a Southerner too. I don't know if I'm awakened, Donna Donald, but I grew up in Texas. So I love the love to the Southerners. Oh, yes. Oh, I'll read a couple more quotes and then we'll have you read your daughter's poem because we never got that. WT writes, this guy is incredibly solid. Alan Zabriskie says excommunicating Hinckley could lead to plenty of resignations. Mark Johnson asks, would you be willing to help out a local ward or stake, with some sort of calling, given your good handling by the stake president? What would you say to Mark, Nathan?
I don't know if I understood that question. What was he saying?
Willing to take a calling now that your stake president is treating you so well?
Only if it was a calling that was dealing with this topic. Hey, we want, would it be okay if we send people, locally to you to find, to find a safe place to talk about some of these things, something like that. If he wanted to do that as a calling, sure. Nothing else.
Okay. Got it. All right. You want to read your daughter's poem? Because that's
I do.
Okay.
I do. It's actually on my Facebook page. She has a few of these and a few of them that I can barely get through without crying, but this is called Death of Faith. What a shame it is that so many of my ancestors sacrificed so much for a spot in some higher heaven, a heaven full of desire and hierarchy dreamed up by white men. They wore the shackles I've now buried with so much reverence, swallowed the lies down with mouthfuls of sacrament bread and a convicted amen. What they had wasn't faith coursing through their blood, giving them the strength to lose themselves in the sacrifice day after day. It was fear. the blinding, animalistic kind that eats at you until you're a husk. And so it makes me wonder if they're proud of me for being brave enough to break the chain of being enslaved to an eternal perspective. And I want my daughter to know that I am proud of her, that she stepped out and she took the lead. I told her initially, hey, I think we got some problems. But then I watched her take the lead, and she says, yeah, I can't do this anymore. And actually, when she did, I just sat and cried all day. The day she says, yeah, I turned in my resignation. And, whether someone decides to resign or not, that's not the point. The point is she did what she felt was the right thing to do. And I'm proud of her for that. And I am doing what I feel like is the right thing to do. And many people have not liked it, but I've gained a lot of other friends to fill their shoes. And so I intend on doing just that, to speak out without fear, to be brave. And that's what I'll do.
I love it. That poem was so amazing. A shout out to your wonderful daughter for sharing it. So many comments are coming in. Renee Days writes, thank you, Nathan, for speaking. Jane writes, I love this poem. Great job. Natalie writes, hot damn, crying. I've said the same thing. Songs of Our Own is asking if you're related to Gordon B. Hinckley. He mentioned at the beginning he was. Doug Vincent, a devout viewer and listener, says he's glad to see a fellow Tennessean. And Debbie asks, what part of Tennessee? Do you want to share that?
Sure. Yeah, we're in the Knoxville area. So we live an hour north of Knoxville. So it's the Cumberland Gap ward area.
Okay, Cumberland Gap. Really quickly, Sarah writes, Nathan says he's not a good writer, but he's an amazing writer. People may want to check out his posts. They are public. And I'll have Maven or Julia share those right now in the comments. And I'm pretty sure Julia is going to share those in the show notes as well. Are you a little bit at all concerned that coming on Mormon Stories might be a bridge too far and could lead to potential disciplinary action or excommunication? Bishop Nathan Hinckley?
I'm not concerned. I don't think it will, but like I said, they just need to do what they need to do, but I don't see why that it would. I think you're doing a great service, John. And I think at least the people in my stake see that. Oh,
well, thank you. So you're not the only listener to Mormon Stories in your stake. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Well, I know of a few, maybe even in some leadership positions currently.
I love it. Okay, I've got one really important announcement to make for the people of Tennessee and for the people in the surrounding states. Before I make that announcement, do you want to give any final thoughts before we close, Bishop Nathan Hinckley?
I don't know what else to say other than thankful that I've had this chance to talk with you, and apparently some folks are listening in. I'm thankful for my Mormon upbringing. I think I did gain a lot from that, but I am also not so thankful that it seems we have been in many ways lied to. And I think it's time to set the record straight and do the hard thing. And it would be much easier just to go away quietly, but I don't see the benefit of that, or I don't see that's the right thing for me. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak what I feel like is my truth, and would encourage anyone else that feels that it's the right thing for them to do the same thing.
Well, Bishop Nathan Hinckley, I hope I get a chance to shake your hand. I'm really grateful for your courage. We need more courageous people to speak up. And, because Mormons respect authority, when people who are or have been in authority speak up, it moves the needle in ways that are unique and special. So I hope I can meet you next week when I'm in Tennessee with Margie. But Bishop Nathan Hinckley, huge thanks to you, your wife, and your daughter, and your family for supporting you in speaking up, and for your stake president and bishop, I assume, that have been so kind and generous when others haven't. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Yep, they're all really good people. All good people in our ward right now. I love them all.
All right. Well, really quickly, let me just make a quick announcement. Those of you who are here at the beginning will have heard it. Margie and I are coming to Nashville, Tennessee on May 25th. The reason why we're doing a meetup is not because we think people want to meet us. We're doing a meetup because we want to help facilitate people making friends and finding community. And that's the only reason we're doing it. So you don't even need to come up and say hi. We're not showing up as new prophets or even with people with wisdom. We literally just want to use it as an excuse to have some fun, to shake your hand, and to allow you to forge friendships and communities in Tennessee and in the surrounding states. So in the description, both in YouTube and in Facebook, and eventually on the Mormon Stories blog, there's a link to register for this meetup. It's super cheap. The money is just going to go to food. No one's making any money off of this. You can donate to Mormon Stories Podcast if you want, but it's not required. But there's going to be events on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. A really generous couple, Jennifer and Darian, last name Rogers. They have sort of volunteered to help people have a good time. They volunteered their own home, their backyard, for at least one or two of the events. So what you need to do is register, go on to the Facebook group. Once you've registered, join the Facebook group, and there'll be details for the events there. I'll also be emailing you all more details. But if you want to, if you're from Tennessee and you want to meet other Tennesseans who are either progressive or post-Mormons, we would love to facilitate that. No pressure. Also, if you want to host a meetup in your city or state or country, Margie and I would be willing to come out to help facilitate community there as well. You just need to email us at mormonstories@gmail.com. Give us a sense that you have the ability, means, or whatever to organize an event, because we don't have time to do the actual organizing, but we will support whatever meetups we can if it means people will find friends and community. So anyway, again, check that out in the description below. And if you are, someone who has a Mormon story where you think, like Bishop Nathan Hinckley, your story can help others, go to mormonstories.org, apply to become a guest on Mormon Stories, and Margie and I would love to consider you. We've got lots of panels coming up. Did you watch the Bishop's panel, Bishop Hinckley? Did you see that?
I did. I really found that very enlightening and fascinating. Would like to do that sometime, maybe.
Awesome. And I'll also announce we're really excited that this upcoming week we're going to be releasing our Relief Society panel. We did a panel of Relief Society presidents, and we're going to be releasing it. And we're really excited about that as well, because that was the most requested panel after we did the Bishop's panel. I also just want to thank everyone who donates to Mormon Stories Podcast. We couldn't do it without you. And we need more donors to replace the ones that drop off and quit. So just really quickly, if you want to see Mormon Stories continue, if you value this content, please go to mormonstories.org, click on the donate button, become a monthly donor, and then we'll be able to keep providing this content. Thank you for everyone who is a donor already. Also, please like this episode and subscribe to the channel, and that will help push this episode far and wide with the algorithms so that many people can benefit from it. All right, Bishop Nathan Hinckley, you're the best. I hope to shake your hand next weekend.
Sounds good, John. I hope to see you then.
And if there's any further developments, I hope they're only positive. We would love to welcome you back to update us on the developments.
If I find out that I sound like Minnie Mouse on here, we're going to have to do this again anyways.
That's fine. I'm sure it's worth it. But really, the voice is fine, even though we don't know your voice.
Okay.
It's the content and the substance of your voice. And I apologize to those who know you who say your voice is different. There's something about your microphone that I think maybe tweaked your voice a little bit. From our end, it sounds great.
Okay.
I apologize to your family and friends that are like, that's not what Nathan sounds like.
Okay.
The best we can do. Anyway, you were great, Nathan. Thanks so much. You take care. Hope to shake your hand soon.
All right. Thanks, John.
And thanks everyone for joining us today on Mormon Stories. Thanks to Julia for doing the time codes and show notes and the shorts. Thanks to Maven for the post-production. Thanks to Gerardo for the thumbnails and the help. Thanks to Brooklyn for the video editing. Thanks to our board. Thanks to our donors that make all this possible. Thanks to all of you viewers who comment and share. We love the comments on our channel and we love the support. Please email me at mormonstories@gmail.com with any feedback or suggestions. Be good to each other, be kind to each other, and we'll see you all again soon on another episode of Mormon Stories Podcast. And I hope to see some of you in Nashville, Tennessee on May 25th, 2024. Take care, everybody.